Let's ask about that, though. I mean, particularly teenage girls, you know, it's almost de rigueur. They have to rebel against their dads. I mean, to some extent, my daughter did, in the nicest way, but, you know, she does what she wants, not what I tell her to do, I'm glad to say. What is it about your dad, do you think? He does seem to conjure up obedience as well as respect amongst all of you.
He's in the household. My father was a very, very powerful man, and he wanted things done the correct way and the right way, and that's the way they were. All of us, we are 9 children, and we are all very obedient. We all obey. We're very respectful to elders and anyone on the streets for that matter. But I think that's what he instilled in us, and we knew that from a very young age, and it's just something that's natural. We didn't go against the grain when he said to do something. We went right along with it.
But actually, maybe if you, I mean, you had this dreadful time with your husband,
yes,
which you talked about a little on Big Brother, actually.
Yes.
If you'd been perhaps more able to stand up for yourself, if your father had sort of allowed that, maybe you wouldn't have got into such a terrible position with your husband, would you?
Well, basically how it happened was I was on my way to Japan to do work, and my mother couldn't go, and my father couldn't go with me, so my father sent him along with me, and he says, well, why don't you go with her, make sure she's okay and take care of her.
So he's your manager, basically?
The minute I got there, he took my passport away, and he says, no, you're not going back home, and that was the beginning of the control factor and everything. And I was extremely, at that time, religious, Jehovah's Witness, which keeps you sheltered as well. I thought everybody in the world was honest, kind, fair. It's like, wow, I matched up with the biggest con man in the world. That's how it was.
You told Ben this incredible story. Tell it to us here, where basically he got his security goons to effectively kidnap you and railroad you into marrying him. Just tell us what happened that day, because it was an amazing story.
Yes,
I've never heard it before.
Yes, it is an amazing story. It's one of those stories when I was performing in Nevada, and he took me from the stage and said, pick a security. At the time I had, I don't know, I think 5 or 6 security. When I said, okay, what is this for? Just get in the car. Got in a limousine. They drove right up to this place. I didn't see the building or anything. The minute I walked in, there was a corridor, sort of like with the red velvet
ropes, yeah.
And there was a lady at the other end of it, and she said, what is your mother's maiden name? And I told her. And she said, okay, thank you. And she sort of stamped something. I think she stamped something or she wrote something down. I don't know exactly what it was.
And you had no idea where you were or what you were doing?
I had no idea whatsoever. And she says, go over there. It was a room about this size. Go over there to that room over there. And went to that room, and there was a lady standing there waiting to marry me. And I said, I can't marry you. I can't. And I told him, I said, I don't even like you. How could I marry you? And I ran out. I ran out a couple of times, actually. I think 3 or 4 times. I don't know how many. The last time I ran out, I told security, I said, please don't let him do this to me. Please don't. And he says, there's certain things in life that you have to do whether you want to or not. I'll get back in there. And she just went, I pronounce you man and wife.
Just like that? No,
just like
didn't go through the vows or anything?
Not through the whole vows at all. And I said, I was so hysterical, I don't remember much of that at that particular time. But I just said, oh, you can't sleep with me, you'll never do this, we're still going to have separate beds. I just went down the gamut, and he told me, he says, well, 6 months you can get it annulled. And 6 months came around. I happened to be in Italy at the time. 6 months came, and I said, it's been 6 months. I said, can I get the annulment? And he says, are you insane? Are you crazy? He started beating my head against the corners of the desk, and he just went berserk. He says, I own you, I control you, I'm never going to let you go. Are you insane? You're mine, you belong to me. And he just went on and on and on, and then he left, and the girl that worked for us,
a nightmare.
She came and she knocked on the door the next morning and said, okay, I'd like to pack your clothes. And I said, okay, where are we going? But I didn't speak to her. I spoke to her through the door, and she says, can I get you anything? And I said, you can get me a bucket of ice if you don't mind, please, and just leave it at the door, because I didn't want her to see me. And I waited a couple of minutes to see if she was there, and I stuck my head out and grabbed it, and there she was standing. And before I knew it, I just automatically made up a story. I just said, I fell in the shower. And I don't know what made me say that to her. I just protected him immediately.
Was his control mainly verbal, or was it physical?
It was very physical. It was sitting here right now on the show, if I were with him now, I would have bruises all over my behind and everywhere, and he would accuse me of sitting like sideways to show my parents or anybody that I'm hurt. And I would know after the show if I would get a beating or not, because He would say, very good show, if I didn't say anything wrong. And if I just sat a certain way, he wouldn't say anything, and I go, okay, here comes another one.
He always denied it. He always said
Oh,
it
yes,
wasn't. But you did get it. In the end, you got a divorce, didn't you?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. How long were you married to him for then?
Too long.
And how are you now? Are you completely over it? Has it left you scarred and damaged?
You know, I would love to say that it hasn't left me scarred and damaged, but I could never tell the story. I would always cry, of course, and I've never really told it, but when I would speak to close people that are very close to me. But I've come to the point where I understand that you have to put things behind you. Of course, it makes me nervous to talk about it, but it's so important to reach the women out there and let them know that they do have a voice, they do have a lobby, and they have to get away. And that's why I'm writing a book about that.
Coming out later this year, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm writing a book coming out with all these facts and about the family, of course, my family, and just how this abuse took place.
It's called Starting Over, isn't it? Which is the
Yes, it's
title
called
of your
Starting
album,
Over.
which is coming out
Yes,
soon.
and that's about starting over as well,
Great.
because
Great.
that's what it is. Yes, of course.
Really nice to talk to you.
Why, thank you. It's lovely to work with married people.
Yeah, we don't all beat the crap out of each other. Okay.
Isn't that?
I know, it's
Oh,
great.
sorry.
But you can stay for the rest of the show, can't you?
Sorry?
You stay for the rest of the show.
Okay.
Good, excellent.
Okay, more from Toya when we come back, and how not to be a fat pig. That's what Michael Winning used to call himself before his diet. And Henry Kelly's here too. We're back in a sec.